Have you ever been in a relationship with a man who is emotionally unavailable? If you've experienced this, I'm sure you have felt frustration, um, anger, maybe, because you might be investing in someone who can't express their emotions. They can't go into deeper intimacy. And intimacy is into me, you see. I'm going to say that again, intimacy, into me, you see. So if this is something you want to experience in your relationship, let's dive deeper into this. So why are men emotionally constipated? Well, it's kind of ironic that women, and I'm talking about those of you that have been in a relationship with someone. So I'm going to assume you've had physical intimacy with them. And now you're frustrated or complaining that there isn't emotional intimacy in your relationship. Okay. But what I find ironic is that you'll enter into a relationship with someone believing that there is emotional intimacy. So something must have occurred in the early stages for you to believe that there was some sort of connection. Now, this occurs because many of you get seduced by lust or limerence. And limerence is extreme infatuation, and lust is that desire to physically be with someone, to have sex with someone, okay? So when a man is in this state of being, we call this the hunt. And many of you say, well, men love the hunt and men love the chase. Well, what is it that we're hunting and chasing? Is it that we're walking around going, I want a relationship, I want a relationship. I'm going to go in with my bow and arrow and I'm going to nab myself a relationship. Is that what men are hunting? I don't think so. Ladies, what is it the one thing a man is thinking about on a first date? You know the answer. Write it down. Say it. It's sex. Men hunt for sex. They don't necessarily hunt for a relationship. Well, now that's not true. There are a subsegment of men that genuinely are on the path to relationship. And these are the men, I'm going to talk about the three different types of men who are actively dating. Please forgive the brightness of this chart. But you can see the users, the spenders, and the growers. And I say users are those who seek short-term gain. Those are the love bombers. Those are the players. Those are the gold diggers, entitled women. Then there's the spenders. These seek companionship, connection, and sex with no direction. Okay, and lastly, the grower and builders. They seek a long-term commitment. They're emotionally grown up. They have relationship skills. That's roughly about 20% of the population. Most of you are experiencing the users and the spenders. And spenders want companionship. They want connection. They want sex. But they're not capable of going any deeper. Now, why does this happen? Because the ground underneath them doesn't feel solid. Maybe they've just experienced a divorce. Maybe they are going through some health issues. Maybe they've got issues in their professional life. Okay, maybe they have issues with elderly parents. When I say issues, responsibilities. Makes it difficult for many men and women to explore a deeper relationship of trust. And I want you to think about this word trust for a moment. Isn't this what this is all about? Emotional availability is, can I trust this person to care about my feelings, to care about my best interest as much as I care about my own? And many of you are in these relationships where you spend most of your time texting with one another, believing that there's this connection with one another. And oh my God, he expresses himself so much in text messages because he says things like, how's your day going? Did you have a good day? I hope you had a good day. Wow, he's talking to me. We must be communicating at an emotional level. Oh my gosh. The rhetoric I hear from so many of you out there makes me wonder how many of you really understand what compatibility is, what commitment is, what character is, what communication is, what is even chemistry. That's because most of us have adopted the following. I call it my relationship iceberg, okay? You can see we focus, the top of the waterline is attraction, chemistry. Okay, below the waterline, shared values, blendable lifestyles, and more importantly, emotional maturity, which means that capacity to actually be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be transparent with your partner, because folks, let me say something. We hyper focus on attraction, and many pay very little attention to compatibility. Shared values, that's an important part of a healthy, happy relationship. Lifestyles that can blend with one another. But Jonathan, I'm in a long distance relationship and we've spent the last 6 months texting one another and we've only seen each other once. Folks, that's not a relationship. That's a cyber relationship at best. And I can't believe how many of you have been communicating with someone for years whom you've never met and you call this a relationship. Now, folks, look at, I've got to address something, that particular elephant in the room. There's a picture of my sweetheart and I. This is actually one of our early dates, if you will. And we spent 1 year talking on the phone. Now, let me be clear about this. We weren't dating. We weren't in a relationship. We just were casual friends, which we met through a dating app. And we just kept in touch with one another. I call her a social friend, if you will, a social acquaintance at the time before we physically met one another. I didn't consider that a relationship. Many of you are considering these communications as relationships, and that's not the case. So I talked about blending lifestyles together, and more importantly, emotional maturity. Now, if you want to shift the narrative, because many of you are chasing men, and what I mean by chasing men, you are putting all this effort in, and even this belief, this fantasy, you're in a relationship with someone. Now, some of you might even be having physical intimacy with one another, and yet there's no real commitment to monogamy or exclusivity. Monogamy means you're not having sex with someone else. Exclusivity means you're not actively in the dating marketplace, which means taking down your dating profiles, which means not flirting with people on Instagram, not adding female friends on Instagram, more female friends, okay? By the way, I think Instagram has become the new form of porn for some men, or maybe the new form of Playboy magazine, if you will, because of the seductiveness of many women's Instagrams. They're trying to become influencers. Okay, but I just went on a side note. So I want to address something, and then we'll get into some signs or some tips that you can use to shift the narrative, because I want you to do this instead. But I think it's important to recognize that the need for a relationship these days is no longer from a place of dependency. Most women are in a financial state in their life where they don't need men financially to support them. So you're no longer dependent. You're no longer dependent to his way of doing things. And if you wait for a man to lean into a relationship, you're going to be waiting a very long time. So I want you to recognize that emotional intimacy, excuse me for a moment. By the way, this morning's coffee mug says, "Don't make me go all psycho roommate on you." Yes, I have a propensity to act that way. What it was about to say is emotional intimacy is a critical facet for a healthy, happy relationship. If you're not familiar with the book Emotional Intimacy by Robert Masters, I highly recommend getting this book. And by the way, all the books I recommend are in the show notes below. So I highly recommend checking out this book, because emotional intimacy is how the capacity to grow your relationship at an emotional level will actually keep this person in your life. Men are actually thirsty for emotional intimacy. They just don't know how to do it or how to get there. This is why I always say, ladies, I know you just want to sit in your feminine energy and just wait for a man to lead. The fact is you are the emotional leaders of the relationship, and we welcome it. By the way, ladies, men are trainable, okay? We just don't know how to go out there and get it. But I will say this, the women who follow my channel, my clients who work with me, by the way, here's a link to get a free discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you, and it's in the show notes as well. The women who work for me are telling me these amazing things. They take the workbooks I give them and actually show it to the men that they're dating, and they're checking off the boxes with the men very early on. They're asking the deeper questions very early on. They use my method of what I call radical honesty. laying your cards on the table and establishing the rules of engagement. The rules of engagement are really clear before that goes inside whether you read the book 8 Dates by Drs. John and Julie Gottman. By the way, here's a copy of the book. Or they establish that before there is sex, there is some agreement of, well, let me reframe that. Before there's regular sex, okay? Sometimes this doesn't happen on the first time you have sex, but if you're gonna have regular sex together, then I highly recommend an agreement of monogamy and exclusivity. Remember, exclusivity means, are you going to actively be seeking to meet other women? Ask those questions. Now, is he gonna tell the truth? Most men are good guys. Most men are good guys. Yes, there are the users out there. Those are the people that will take advantage of you. But that's not all men. That's just a small percentage of men. Most men will agree. If they don't agree, it tells you their capability of being a grower builder versus one of those are spenders. But Jonathan, all men say they want to take it slow. They need time to get to know me. Folks, let him take all the time he needs. He doesn't get to have sex with you until he clearly wants some level of commitment and exploration of a relationship. And you better be clear on the word relationship. I have a relationship with the mailman, or male person, I should say, at my complex. I have a relationship with them. We say hi with one another. That's a relationship, okay? I have a relationship with friends. I have a relationship with social acquaintance. These are all different types of relationship. A romantic relationship, you might be thinking of it like this, and he's thinking like this. And you know that space in between? That's called drama. That's called drama because you're trying to chase him. You're trying to convince him to be on your same page instead of having deeper conversations early on. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? Please let me know. So I'm going to give you some tips. I put some notes together. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, here are some tips to tear down his emotional curtain. First is pay attention to body language. Body language. Folks, do you realize that 80 to 90% of communication is nonverbal? But Jonathan, I don't get to see his body language because our relationship is via text messaging. Our relationship is over telephone call. Folks, let me be clear about something. If you can't physically meet someone early on, then you better do a FaceTime or Zoom call by the time you've had your third communication with them. If you cannot physically meet him quickly, then you better do a Zoom, FaceTime, WhatsApp call to physically see this person. And let me explain why. Many of you get catfished. And by the way, if you're watching this video and you get catfish in the future, you only have yourself to blame. I'm saying it to you now. I'm your big brother. Look, if I could be there for you on a first date, I would have the shotgun out pointed at the guy's head and saying, what's your intention with my little sister? Well, I want you to take that over for yourself. Be more proactive. Be more intentional. Okay, body language. Guys show you how we feel, even if we don't say it out loud. This is why relationships must be in person, okay? Number 2, how to bring out his emotional availability is express gratitude. Folks, one of the most powerful things you can do in relationship is to every day express 3 things you're grateful for with your partner. Just simply 3 things. What are 3 things you're grateful for? You know, I'm grateful for my sweetheart on so many different levels, but one of the things I'm grateful for is that she actually loves to get together for our morning coffee, and we sit every morning and have our little powwow, if you will. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that she wants to be with me. I'm grateful for that. And more importantly, I'm grateful for her kind heart. She really is a woman who is very kind. Oh, and I'm also grateful for her capacity to communicate as an emotional grown-up. If something's bothering her, she brings it up in a very compassionate way. Okay, so express gratitude with your partner. Express 3 things and invite him to share 3 things as well. Yes, you're leading the process. Listen, if he gets to have regular sex with you, you get to establish the rules of engagement. Stop putting duct tape on your mouth or not speaking up. Ladies, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right guy. Okay, number 3, do fun things together. Social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, fun things together. Spend time with family and friends. Do fun things together. This is how a man bonds with you. Men are more physical. They need what they don't bond over the telephone. Now, they might use you as their therapist over the telephone. Many of you get sucked into trauma bonding in the sense that your mutual traumas bond you together, and it's all over the telephone, and you feel this great connection with them. And what happens when you meet and start to do fun things together? It blows up because you didn't build your real bond through doing fun things together. Not doing things together, doing fun things together. Number 4, talk about the things he cares about and not the downer stuff like his divorce or what's going on with his work. No, you have to talk about the good stuff. That's how he bonds with you. Invite him to talk about the wins in his life. I call them, whether they're tiny wins or big wins. And by the way, wins, W-I-N-S, okay? Make sure that you're mutually talking about your individual success stories each day. That gets him bonded with you. Number 5, don't make assumptions. Texting all day is not a sign of emotional availability. Texting is not a sign of emotional availability. Texting is not a sign of emotional availability. Don't make this assumption. And lastly, and I could have come up, by the way, the book Emotional Intimacy gives you a lot deeper ways to explore intimacy. Also, there's another great book I want to recommend. I love this book by Barbara DeAngelis, How to Make Love All the Time. This gives you great tips for building deeper intimacy in your relationship. I highly recommend checking it out because the bottom line is this: lead by example. Lead by being vulnerable. Lead by being authentic. Lead by being transparent. I don't mean you have to share secrets with them. You don't have to share, deep, dark secrets with them. But ultimately, if you're going to, two people are going to explore a relationship together, then it must be from a place of building intimacy. Or furthermore, no, let me reframe that. Building trust with one another through commitment. And commitment, again, is that agreement for monogamy and exclusivity, and more importantly, teamwork with one another. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? Please let me know.